Hello, everyone. Andy here from Biohazard Declassified. Thank you for tuning into this edition of the Biohazard Declassified podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about George A. Romero's Resident Evil. And I've brought a special guest along with me who's doing actually a comic book adaptation of it. October, introduce yourself.
Hi there. My name is October Keegan. I also go by Sissel the Cat on Twitter. And thank you so much for having me on here. It's a real honor.
Yeah, we've been wanting to do this for a little while, and I'm so glad we've managed to make time for this. And George A. Romero's Resident Evil is a very interesting subject, and I think now that you're kind of doing this comic book, it's kind of breathing more life into it. It's got this kind of mystique, kind of like Resident Evil 1.5 in a way, and no itch will scratch it until I saw that you were doing your comic book adaptation. So let's start from the beginning. What is George A. Romero's Resident Evil?
So, Resident Evil from the outset, Capcom always really liked the idea of it having a movie adaptation. It was always very inspired by movies, obviously starting off as an attempt to remake Sweet Home that grew into something else. But Capcom had already seen some minor success with things like the Street Fighter movie and stuff like that. And with Resident Evil, it was already poised to be a much more cinematic kind of experience. And they had the live action cutscenes in RE1. So right when Resident Evil 2 was being developed, they had a live action Japanese TV commercial. And George A. Romero, who, in case anybody listening isn't familiar, is the creator of what we consider to be zombies. He's the writer and director of Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, dozens of other movies. He's the reason that all of this is here, and he was a huge influence on Resident Evil as a whole as well, obviously. And he was hired on to direct this commercial, and it's super fun and kind of cheesy. But afterwards, I guess he took a really huge interest in the property, and it's pretty clear that he started reading the books and the comic books and playing the game and stuff. And at the time, Capcom had licensed out the film rights to production company Constantin Pictures, who still have the Resident Evil film rights. They produced everything all the way up to Welcome to Raccoon City, and they're producing the new live-action Netflix series. Yeah, there it is. It's a very charming little commercial. I love the way it looks. And Romero wrote a treatment. There were a couple of different treatments written by different people. There was one, I don't remember the writer's name, but there is a script that's just bizarro, where like Wesker's in like an insane asylum or something. It's very, very weird. But Romero submitted a script, and his version is, like pretty much every video game adaptation is very, very different. But he brought a lot of mystique with it just because he is who he was. And it was sadly rejected by Constantine. A lot of people assume that it's because it was bad. Capcom has gone on record as saying it sucked. I think that was literally the word they used. But the more likely scenario appears to be that his script is horrifically violent. Right. The descriptions of gore and violence and death in the script are comically overdone, and German films tend to shy away from graphic violence, as well as their games, obviously. Lots of games either straight up don't get released there, or they have heavy alterations. And Romero's script went through a couple of drafts that we've never gotten to read, until finally being rejected in favor of the Paul W.S. Anderson script, which was way less gory and was filmed mostly in cement boxes. Whereas Romero's script is filmed in all sorts of places, including the mansion, the city, the labs, the forest, all sorts of different places. So Anderson's script was less violent and way cheaper. And while we haven't gotten access to Romero's other drafts, thankfully we do have access to his very first draft, which he wrote in 1998. And it's, like I said, it's different. It made a lot of changes, but it's also very arguably the closest any Resident Evil film adaptation has ever gotten to actually adapting the games. Um, and it's
Does that
been,
include Welcome to Raccoon City?
yeah. Welcome to Raccoon City is the closest we've gotten on screen, actually filmed, but his version is impressive in its ambition. It has every single member of stars in it, from Barry and Rebecca to Forrest and Richard. And it has all but the crows and the chimera in it, on the spiders. Every other BOW is in it. Um, and so it goes through all the right story beats with changes again, but like Wesker's a lot closer to actual Wesker than, say, Welcome to Raccoon City, where he's just a guy. And no shit, I actually like Welcome to Raccoon City. I know a lot of people really hated it. I thought it was fine for what it was.
Yes.
But his script is really exciting in that way because it's very of its era. You know, it has lots of weird changes that might not make any sense, especially from a modern perspective. But they're interesting changes, and I think that if this movie had released, fans would have received it way better than the Anderson film.
I suppose it's interesting as well because as you've said, the first draft was in 1998. So this would have, depending on what time of the year it was released, it would have predated Resident Evil 2. So what we've got is, again, George A. Romero didn't have the foresight to see the rest of the series. We might have had a Wesker in a completely different direction than what he ended up becoming. He might have just died in the does he die in the first in George A. Romero's script?
Yes, he does.
Okay, and that's
he
it.
he really, really, really dies in Romero's script. Yeah, well, that's one of the things that has been really exciting about working on this comics adaptation, and it's something that I think fans forget, because that's the thing. Again, the script has been available online since forever. It's really easy to find; anybody can read it, and it's totally free. Uh, so there's lots of things that might be like, whoa, where is he getting that? But it's important to remember that so much of Resident Evil's lore hadn't been established when he wrote his script. His script was written, and it's dated October 98. So RE1 and 2 were both out.
Oh, so yeah,
But only, we didn't have anything but those first two games, the Wildstorm comics adaptions, and the very first S.D. Perry novel, which released a month before his script is dated. And it clearly had a huge influence on his script as well. There's a lot of vibes of Perry's novel, The Umbrella Conspiracy, in his script. But because of that, there's all sorts of things that either he had to fill in gaps, that like a lot of fans will probably be kind of like, whoa, why did he change that? Like the Spencer Mansion is the Arkley Mansion in his script.
okay.
And I think the Spencer Mansion was established as such in the games, but it had all of this baggage with like Oswald Spencer and stuff. And in his script, he changed it to being an abandoned mansion in the woods that was built by a bootlegger mogul in like the 1930s. He was a guy that had gotten rich off of bootlegging alcohol during Prohibition in America. And it's very, very wild, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, there really wasn't that much lore established at
Yes,
the
of
time.
course.
And things, and the biggest one, I think for a lot of people, Stars has nothing to do with Raccoon City. It's a government military organization. And I've seen people like, why would he do that? Why would he change? It's like, that's what they were in 1996. The 1996 American Manual explains that Stars is a government agency, not part of the RPD. So it's like, these are things that are interesting about his script, that he either had to make things up or it's based on old lore before us in America either knew things because they were buried in like weird Japanese manuals and stuff, or were mistranslated, or just straight up not written yet.
Is there, I suppose, kind of deconstructing the script before we go into your adaptation. Is there anything you would say that Romero did very well, that he did better than if you just take, well, actually any piece of Resident Evil adaptation? What would be the highlights for you from a Romero script?
I'd say the real highlights are the kind of intrigue and the mystery that he builds around the mansion and the monsters. The monsters all have this very like, it's the same structure as the game where it's that one upping of each, like zombies, then Plant 42, then Yawn, then Hunters, then finally the Tyrant. Um, and getting to see the Stars members kind of get whittled down farther and farther, while we still have Wesker, who's still very much game Wesker, who he was at the time, which, you know, he hadn't been planned as this big overarching mega villain at the time. He just died in RE96, and that was the last we heard of him at the time. But he's surprisingly close to the like master manipulator that we know Wesker would become. And there's pretty good world building in it. I think things link together pretty nicely. And I think it's just really freaking scary and super gory. I mean, the Anderson movies are only so gory because, again, the German production studio, you don't really notice it until you think about it. It's like, yeah, those movies really aren't very bloody. Resident Evil Apocalypse is the funniest one. There's like a single drop of blood in that movie. It's very weird. It's a very bloodless R-rated movie.
But then they've got the Alice's dislocated finger, which I would argue is more disgusting.
Is like way worse. Yeah. It's like RE7's Japanese
blackjack.
The censored blackjack, where it like breaks his fingers, looks way worse than them getting cut off. Oh god.
Yeah, no, I remember one of the guys on the team showing me, and he was like, "Have you seen the Japanese version of this?" I'm like, "Oh my god, I just want to play the standard release. That's absolutely horrific."
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, it's super fun. It's super, if you're into like super gory zombie movies, which is what he did. You know, he worked with Tom Savini, who's the godfather of gore. He designed the gore effects in Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th, and his masterpiece is Day of the Dead, which is like one of the most stomach churning gore movies I've ever seen. But it's lots and lots of that, lots of fun grisly deaths, and lots of I don't know. It's fun. I don't know. It has a great pace to it.
Is there anything in the, and I appreciate this was a draft. This wasn't necessarily the absolute final script that Romero was going for. But is there anything in that script that you're undertaking that you think, oh, why did he do that?
Less so that, and more so, and this is something that I should talk about with my adaptation. It is a first draft, and you know, with films, they go through multiple drafts and they shore things up, and they'll have people come in and look things over sometimes. And even when shooting starts, things might change. A scene might get rewritten there on the set. Actors have their own contributions. You know, there's so many famous movie lines that was the actor's idea on set. So as it is with just a first draft, it's very, very rough. It's full of typos and all sorts of things. Mostly it just has, it's less things of like, oh, why did he do that? And more that like, oh, he didn't reread this, did he? Like one of the big things, and this is was what I meant by I should talk about it with the adaptation, is, for instance, Chris is simply not in the scene where Umbrella is explained. There's a big scene. It's a lot like the scene in the Anderson version where it's explained to Alice who the team is and who Umbrella is and all that stuff. This very kind of powwow scene of exposition, and a scene similar to that exists in Romero's script where Wesker explains to Stars what Umbrella is, what the virus is, yada yada. Chris isn't in that scene for some reason, but Chris has all of that knowledge later.
Right.
So it's like, that's something that I'm changing, and
Gotcha.
that is something with the adaptation, and we'll talk more about the adaptation when we get there. But there are things that I had to change just for the sake of making sure that as a comic it is readable and that it reflects what I feel he would have done. Probably in the later drafts we can't read.
Understood. Understood. And just before we move on to really getting into the nitty gritty of the adaptation, do you really believe that with a bit more refinement, with a bit more thought behind it, maybe somebody else reading it, do you really think that George A. Romero's Resident Evil would have been the Resident Evil movie that us as fans would have craved?
I think so. I mean, there's definitely changes that I think a lot of fans would take umbrage with. The most notable being Chris Redfield is not a member of Stars. He's just Jill's boyfriend. Um, he's a Native American farmhand, and he like he cares for eagles and stuff. It's very wild, but at the same time, it has that sort of like he grows into being Chris. Like even though he's not a member of Stars, he's still very much a part of the story and fills the exact same role he has in the game by the end of the story. So it's like I can totally see there being a lot of fans that would take issue with that, but I think overall, yeah, I think with some refinement, I think with a high enough budget, I think it probably would have been seen as one of the better video game movies.
What could have been? What
Yeah.
could have been? So now we've kind of discussed the backstory of George A. Romero's Resident Evil. This is where we bring you in. Why have you decided to adapt a draft of a script that was never meant to be?
Mostly just I had the idea a couple of years ago, but I never did anything with it just because I was like, what's the point? And at the time, like I didn't have any followers or nothing, so I was like, I'd just be throwing it into the void. Um, but with Welcome to Raccoon City on the verge of coming out, there was so much hubbub about they changed this, they changed that. It looks cheap. It's I'm angry about the casting, yada yada. And the film came out. I thought it was flawed but fun. A lot of people seem to really really hate it, which I don't know. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. After Final Chapter, I'll take what I can get. Um, but and especially with the Netflix series coming. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm not looking forward to that. But I don't know. I was kind of looking at it. It's like there is one Resident Evil movie that we've never gotten to see, and you know, fans making a fan film out of it, that's kind of out of the question unless somebody wanted to try to do it in like Source Filmmaker or something. And maybe fans could do like a roundtable like audio drama of it. Um, but I mean, if that's something I wanted to do, I'd have to go find people to do that.
The technology,
Yeah,
etc.
it's all sorts of things, and I'm not an audio editor or anything like that. But what I am is an artist, and I have 15 years of art training and experience, and doing comics and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, this is something that I can do. If there's any way to realize this, a comics adaptation would work, and uh, I can do that by myself.
Yes, yes. You can keep it all in house. I mean, you might have to I don't know whether you're going to outsource like some tiles or graphics that you might need to do, but I suppose the majority of it, yeah, you could just keep it
Yeah, so
certainly keep it in house.
yeah, I'm capable of doing it all, and it's I don't know, when there's something you want to see in the world and you have the ability to do it, why not just do it?
Indeed, and you did make this was January the 8th. You did make a huge statement with this. I remember seeing it and being like immediately just entranced, just to see your interpretation of what you think the characters look like. Because one thing when I shared it and it absolutely just spread like wildfire on it when we put the post up, as they said, is a common comment was how different the characters look. Why do you think Romero? Because these are obviously based on Romero's words. Why did you think that he decided to do that? Was it just to make it different, or ultimately was Romero forward thinking and quite a diverse person, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that Romero was definitely very forward thinking. He famously, a lot of people read uh, a statement about like racism and stuff into Night of the Living Dead. Romero would be the first person to say that wasn't there. It was unintentional, but when people told him about that, he's like, you know what? Yeah, I should actually kind of start to put messages in my films. So, like Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead both have pretty strong. I wouldn't use the word social justice, but strong kind of socio-political stances on the way the world works. He always tried to keep his cast super diverse. He always had really great, strong female characters, and uh, keeping his worlds feeling real, feeling real and diverse. And when it came to Resident Evil, it's yeah, I see a lot of people freaking out that like Barry's black and Chris is Native American. Um, I think he just looked at Resident Evil and went, well, first of all, the only black guy in this script is a corpse, and with no lines. And also, like, I don't know, a crew of like 12 white people. I don't know, why not? Why not change a couple of them? It's what difference does it
Yeah.
make? And I think it works for Barry, and I think with the kind of character he created, he turned Chris into, I think it works. Yeah, and especially when you watch his later films like Land of the Dead, where he's like so clearly like this really angry liberal living in the Bush administration, where like half the movie feels like it's directly making fun of George Bush. It's like, yeah, I think that was the kind of guy he was. So even in 1998, yeah, there's definitely an intent behind him changing a couple of the characters' races.
And what's really interesting about this is it's the same argument that we've had about Welcome to Raccoon City, like
Mhm.
25 years later. Obviously, the elephant in the room being, of course, Avon Jogia, not being exactly what Leon looked like in the original media. But one argument that I've always had is that it's an adaptation. It's
Yeah,
somebody's spin. It doesn't have to. If you wanted to just have Leon S. Kennedy in a movie, just go watch the cutscenes. And
yeah,
the same with this in the original Resident Evil game. If you just want the original characters, just go and we could just
yeah.
put the cutscenes together, but that wouldn't be a very fun movie. So
Yeah, and it's yeah, absolutely, and what works best in a game may or may not work best on screen. And personally, I thought Avon was awesome. I thought he was really charismatic and fun. He's not really game Leon, but he's not really meant to be. And I feel like the whole point was that he'll event in assuming someday that movie gets a sequel. It's kind of on the rocks at the moment. Um, that he would grow into being more of the personality of the Leon that we know. But it's like, you want a Leon that looks like Game Leon. We had that in Resident Evil Retribution, and he sucked.
he,
I
he,
don't
he did.
know. He
PewDiePie
he
Leon,
looked
as we call him.
he looked enough like Leon, but he also told Alice to leave a little girl to die, and that's, oh, hashtag not my Leon with that.
Yeah, but also we do have, of course, the I know Netflix calls them the anime, but
Yeah,
we have Infinite Darkness, we have
yeah,
Degeneration, which if you want the really really true to character Leon, it can be that, again, it's going to be no different. Like as long as there's, but again, that kind of doesn't make sense either. For example, Barry, as long as there's context to him being black, does it even matter? Does it
yeah. It
really
doesn't
even
matter.
matter? Um, but yeah, it's just somebody's spin on the character of how they wanted to, and as long as it tells a great story, it doesn't really matter, really.
Yeah,
But one thing, as you said earlier about the strong female characters, that's one thing I feel that Resident Evil has always done, even since the mid-90s. It's had these really strong, independent female characters, um, which would lend itself to George A. Romero, really.
Yeah, and I love his version of Jill. She's super badass, and she's like super capable. Um, and he kind of has an interesting idea with her where she's kind of clashing between, like I said, her and Chris are dating in the script, and he kind of included a thing where she's clashing between her duty as a soldier and like genuinely caring for Chris, who's, as far as the story is concerned, just some guy that rolled into the mansion in the middle of all of this. And yeah, and I think that their relationship together works really well, and I think that she herself is absolutely kick-ass, and I can't wait to draw and show off some of the kick-assery she does in his script.
Could we kind of do effectively a couple of minute summary of George A. Romero's Resident Evil? Because this is for people who are watching this for the first time, they might just be like, I don't know what's going on right now. Even if you just do like Act One is
Yeah.
about this, Act Two, Act Three. So from the top, if you can.
Yeah, so basically, we lay our scene in Raccoon City, which is set in Pennsylvania, because it's written by George A. Romero, who lived in Pittsburgh and set everything he ever made in Pennsylvania. Um, and uh, deep underground of the mansion, there is a lab where an accident has taken place, and government eyes that have been that watch the accident happen have issued out an emergency evac uh, team to Raccoon City. In the meantime, the Special Tactics and Rescue Squad, which is headed by U.S. Army Colonel Albert Wesker, has had a secret strike team already stationed in Raccoon City in case of this very scenario. And they have all been working undercover for, it isn't specified, maybe months, maybe years. And one of them is Jill Valentine, who's captain of Star's Bravo team. And she's been living in Raccoon City under the guise of just being an ordinary citizen. And she started dating Chris Redfield, who is a hawk wrangler and farmhand on the outskirts of the city. And orders come in, and Jill is activated, quote unquote, and she suits up and heads off with Bravo Team to the mansion to basically wait for Alpha Team to come in and back them up. And just as Bravo Team arrives, they're attacked by wild, vicious dogs that appear to be rotting from the inside out. And Jill Valentine tries to call for emergency evac before being suddenly cut off, which causes Star's Alpha Team, headed by Wesker and made up of Forrest, Brad, Rebecca, Barry, Richard, Joseph, Kenneth. I think that's everybody. Forrest, I don't remember if I said him, as well as like 4 made up characters who are there to die. And a character named Michelle, I think. Her name escapes me.
That would be interesting though, because wait, in the first Resident Evil movie, there's a character. No, wait, that's her real
Michelle
name.
Rodriguez plays the character Rain.
Rain. Sorry, that's it. Was she kind of like Rain, out of curiosity?
She was a Latina woman that was really strong and badass and talked smack. So I think I really do think that there's a chance that Anderson at least read Romero's script.
Surely.
There's some vibes to it. But so Alpha Team shows up to give them backup. In the meantime, Raccoon City has been put on lockdown by the U.S. government. But Chris, who hates the government and the military or something, I guess, skips town to run to his farm, where he finds that the guy he worked on the farm with has been killed by beasts unknown. And Chris sees the helicopters traveling to the Arkley mansion, which is Arkley, not Arkley. It's Arkley, right. Which is a weird change, but maybe he couldn't remember how it was spelled. Chris is a Raccoon local, and he actually used to play in the mansion as a child because it's been there abandoned this whole time. And he's like, they're heading for the old Arkley estate. So Chris goes in that direction and arrives just as Star's Alpha Team arrives, and Star's Alpha Team, just like in the games, is attacked by the packs of zombified dogs and are chased into the mansion. And Chris is chased around the back, where he finds the spot that he used to get inside of the mansion as a kid to sneak inside. Once inside of the mansion, Star's Alpha Team, who have obviously found the remains of Bravo Team all over the place, are now on a search for why they're actually there. They were sent to the mansion to rescue the head of the Umbrella research staff, a scientist named John Marcus. Bizarre that the creator of the T-Virus in his script is named Marcus, because Resident Evil 0 wouldn't come out for like 3 more years.
That wasn't in any notes in the original about anybody.
I don't believe so. It's just a weird coincidence.
That is interesting.
And they arrive and find the mansion full of zombies. And it turns out Jill survived. And she's really angry because she would have liked to have known that the mansion was full of zombies and monsters before her and her team came in and got all slaughtered but her. Chris shows up, and a couple of STARS members are killed, and then they venture off into the labs, where they pretty much just go through like a Halloween haunted house horror show from room to room, where they run into Neptune and Plant 42 and Yawn, and they get split up, and they're all trying to get to the very last level, level D, because that's where the antivirus is held. And if they can just get there, they'll be able to get the antivirus and get the research, and hopefully be able to deliver this back to the government and stop a situation like this from ever happening again. And, you know, STARS members are being picked off, and finally they're down to just like one last little group of survivors that managed to make it to level D, which is where Umbrella researcher Ada Wong is, with the last remaining survivors of the Umbrella team. And Wesker's like, all right, you wait here and I'll go get the data and everything, and we can get out of here. By the way, Brad's with them, and he's been bitten, and he's slowly dying, and he isn't a helicopter pilot. He's their techie. Right. He's the computer hacker. And Ada reveals that there is no antivirus. There's nothing that can be done for him, and that actually what's been happening is their original mission of saving Dr. Marcus was FUBAR, because he was killed. Like, they find his zombie. And the real reason they've been going down here is because Wesker's video game Wesker, and he's trying to steal the Umbrella data to sell to the highest bidder. Whereupon they all confront him, and this whole time he's had a thing that if he dies, the mansion will explode. He has like a thing in his ear. Right. It's kind of ill-defined in his script, but anyway, Jill, in a fit of rage, is like, all this should be destroyed anyway, and she like rips it out of his ear. And then it turns out, instead of exploding immediately, the mansion has a 15-second or 15-minute timer before detonation. So the STARS hustle out of there, and Wesker, in a panic, tries to get the last of the data and is killed by the Tyrant, which escapes. The Tyrant chases the remaining STARS members up to the surface, and in the end, only Chris, Jill, Rebecca, and Ada survive, and they use the rocket launcher to blow the Tyrant into a million billion pieces. And I forgot to mention also, not just the mansion, but all of Raccoon City was wired to blow, like in Welcome to Raccoon City.
Jesus.
Which is interesting, considering that Raccoon City wouldn't be destroyed until RE3, but he pre-destroyed it in this story. And they managed to escape as Raccoon City fades off into a white blinding flash.
That was very, very well put. No, that's glorious. So a couple of things then. Do the Bravo team generally found in their positions that they were previously?
No, they're just kind of scattered all over the lawn. You know, arms and legs here and there. The only member of Bravo team that's a character from the games is Jill. Everybody else is made up. Right. Which is another interesting thing about his script is that the rest of Stars gets 100% more screen time and dialogue than they ever have in the games. Richard and Kenneth have like kind of a brotherly banter going back and forth. Forrest talks a lot. The only one that gets done just like he does in the games is poor Joseph. He gets mauled by dogs almost immediately.
Right.
But his version of Bravo Team is just Jill and like 4 dudes that are just there to die.
Just pure red shirts.
Yeah.
Poor bastards. What about one character you didn't mention that escapes is Barry?
No, Barry sadly doesn't escape. In his script, Barry and Wesker are like childhood friends.
Right.
They came up together and they've been in the military together forever. And Barry chooses to try to stick by Wesker's side because he like believes in him. And Wesker shoots him in the leg to distract the tyrant. And the tyrant rips Barry to shreds.
Oh my word! Just it's kind of similar, but he actually perishes immediately. I'll take it.
Yeah. And that is another thing that's worth mentioning is that there was no established canon ending of RE1 at the time.
Yes.
Even with RE2, who knows that there is no real indication of who survived other than like Chris and Jill for sure survived. Rebecca and Barry, who knows? And that was kind of up in the air for a long time, I think. Like the first time I think it was ever 100% confirmed who survived was Resident Evil 5's History of Resident Evil, where it actually gave us like a list. Like we assumed that Barry and Rebecca survived, but they'd never appeared in anything else since. So, I guess Barry was in Gaiden.
Well, obviously Resident Evil 0. What dumbass? Sorry,
it's okay. It's okay.
I should. No, it just come to my head. But no, obviously the EX files from Resident Evil 2
Oh,
and 64.
yeah.
I wonder if that confirms because that had some bits in 3. And well, actually, we do know 100%. Well, depending on what ending you get in Resident Evil 3, Barry rescues Jill.
Right. Barry shows up. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I was getting mixed up between release dates and then game canon. I was like, why don't I just say Resident Evil 0? Obviously, I was set before Resident Evil
1. But yeah, the main thing is that there was no who knew who survived in RE1, and because there's 2 best endings that directly conflict with each other,
they do.
He just had to pick one, and he decided to go with, I guess, Chris's ending because it's Chris, Rebecca, and Jill, and Ada, who is there, and is completely different character than who she is in the games. Assuming he may or may not have ever made a sequel where she'd have turned out to be closer to the double agent that we know her as.
Well, we do know that, and I don't know how. Well, I say we do know, but I remember watching it. It was in some like "Did you know" video, and when they were talking about Romero's script, and they said that to get a real feel for the game, George A. Romero got his secretary or assistant to sit down and play Resident Evil 1 and 2 and document their thoughts. I don't know how true that is.
I've heard that too. But I've also heard that he had also played the games. So maybe he played them and then had somebody else play the shit out of them so that they could like write down everything that they thought was important.
And as you said that he did,
he absolutely read that book. And that's the another fun connection. And this just all comes back to SD Perry. Both Welcome to Raccoon City and Romero's script use Trent's little PDA, the pocket computer that Trent gives Jill in the novel. Wesker uses it in both Romero's script and Welcome to Raccoon City. Just like, it's wild, this idea that's just literally in the novel, just to get around like the map and explain how Jill knew about a couple of puzzles. It's just like a plot device, but it made its way into 2 different versions of the live action films.
How did Romero? I know you've mentioned that specifically with the PDA, but how else did he kind of get around? Because survive. I appreciate. he's got a lot of bits and like obviously the established character lore, the key locations. But one of the big things of Resident Evil is, of course, the puzzles. And I don't think there was enough puzzles in. Well, yeah, aside from the brief reference in Welcome to Raccoon City, I can't think of any other puzzles that there were.
Yeah, well, in Welcome to Raccoon City, there's basically nothing other
Hmm.
than the piano. And in the Anderson movies, we had the laser hallway, which was basically just like it's kind of a allusion to that sort of death trap, like the shotgun ceiling. Romero's script doesn't really have. There's one trap which is it's like a laser grid wire security system, and when they trip it, acid sprays out of the walls. Um,
Oh.
and that's about as close as it gets. One big difference is that they are only in the mansion for a couple of minutes before they go into the labs. So the mansion doesn't get too explored, and from there on, it's just like lab environment. So there really isn't a lot of places for puzzles to be. That said, they do have the keys. They aren't the old world keys like the big brass keys from the games. They're like Doom color coded card keys. But they need them to get around places. They need a blue one to get into the mansion, then a green one to get into the labs, then orange, then red. Um, which is a fun thing that I'm doing with the comics adaptation is I'm actually having each of the cards have like a sword and then a shield and then the armor and then the helmet on them. Cause why not?
It's an adaptation,
Yeah.
so why not? Well, I suppose we got to get to the fun part now. We're gonna be talking about your comic that you got coming out.
Yeah.
So from the top.
Yeah, I've been working on this. I announced it at the start of the year, and at the moment, publicly, let's make some loud clicking noises for the audience. Uh, page. I am on page 11 publicly. Page 12 if you support me on Patreon. And yeah, I'm basically the whole point of the project is to bring his script to life, to give us a vision of it that we've never gotten to have before. And we can't watch it, but we can read it. And to try to let this unseen history of Biohazard unfold without trying to sound too sales pitchy. I'm a big fan of movie comics adaptions, as in comic book adaptions of movies, which used to be very, very popular, and they don't really do that anymore. And the I just don't. Yeah, you could to Amber. I'm seeing you're up to page 4. Yeah, just go on. My Twitter moments has everything. But yeah, the movies used to have comic book adaptions all the time, especially big tentpole ones. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jurassic Park, Spider-Man, Spider-Man, the movie, the comic, the game, that sort of thing. All these things had comic adaptions, and that's a big part of what I want to do with this is I want it to feel like a comic that would have come out at the time. Wildstorm had a deal with Capcom to publish Resident Evil comics. I think that deal was over by the time that Anderson's movie came out, but Romero's film probably would have come out earlier than that. Earliest I can see is maybe the year 2000. Script written in 98, shot in 99, released in 2000. Just trying to keep that in mind. And when you read it on Twitter, you'll notice I've actually put like a comic book filter on it, a halftone printing filter, just to kind of make it feel a little older, trying to capture that inking style of older comic books. And to capture the spirit of what that film might have been. It would be super easy for me to just go like, oh, well, I'll follow his script, but I'll change this to be more like the games. I'll just dress Jill like she is in the games, and I'll just have I'll just draw the mansion as it was in the games. It's like that's not what this movie would have been. As fun as it is to imagine a seriously game accurate like Jill design, for instance, they can't even get that right now. let alone in a film shot in 1999. There's zero chance she would have been in a particularly game accurate costume. Amazingly, Romero actually specifies her beret in the script, and it's like a plot device because she loses it and Chris picks it up. So it's like I have that to work with, but with everything else, it's like I find it really hard to believe that stars would just be dressed like stars. I imagine they'd probably be wearing something much more military.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And we had that with the original, which
Yeah.
is which is absolutely hilarious. When again, I hate to reference Welcome to Raccoon City. The one big comment I heard in my comment section was, "Why are they all holding MP5s when there is literally a photograph in the Stars office in the game with them all with like MP5s?" It made absolutely no sense why someone would make that comment.
So everyone look forward to that. They also are all studded out with machine guns in Romero's script, and the only character that gets a shotgun is Chris because it is his shotgun he brought from home. But yeah, definitely things like that. So I don't have anything to work with in terms of designs. The only production art ever done for it, as far as I'm aware, was horror artist Bertie Wrightson, who he's
is that publicly available?
Yes, Bernie Wrightson did a handful of concept sketches of the Tyrant, and you can just look up Bernie Wrightson Resident Evil. It should be the only thing that comes up. There's like 2 or 3 of them. Yeah, there we go. It is kind of funny that he hired, for anybody that doesn't know, Bernie Wrightson is a beloved horror illustrator. He's most famous for his work on Marvel's Swamp Thing and is it Swamp Thing or Man Thing? Doesn't matter. They're the same character. And he did a wonderful adaptation of Frankenstein for Marvel. He has a gorgeous art style. But anyway, he did a couple of concept art pieces of the Tyrant for Romero's script, which is the one thing that I do have access to. So my Tyrant will look like this. It will be based on his concept art.
That was going to be my question, is how, but that has answered it.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to work with for anything else, so I'm just trying to keep in mind what a film of that era might have done with this. You know, even in the most accurate adaptations of things like Spider-Man, you know, Spidey's costume in the 2002 movie is kind of wonky, and it's got like the weird puffy webbing. And Green Goblin's dressed, you know, famously he's dressed as a Power Ranger. That's what everybody said. It's like trying to keep in mind that mindset of like a film studio wanting to have their own mark on something. That the characters, you know, I am kind of pushing that with like Barry's pretty much just going to be dressed as Barry, but mostly just so people know it's Barry while reading. And I'm keeping Jill's shoulder pads because I think that they're a really good visual character design element, but her costume otherwise, and the beret, is otherwise going to be completely different. Rebecca's completely different. That's and trying to keep in mind, you know, it would be super easy to just draw the characters' faces, for instance, as just referenced to the game, but it's like, you know, they would have been cast by actors. You know, in this piece of promotional art, I did cast quote unquote actors. I'm not doing that for the final comic. I did that mostly just for fun for this poster to make it look more like a real movie poster. But in the comic, I don't want to just puppeteer actors without their consent. So they're just kind of made up faces.
Very well done, made up faces. I must add.
It's you know, like Rebecca, you know, I love Rebecca. She's one of my favorite characters, and it would be super easy to just be like, she's just Rebecca as she is in the games. But like, that's not what she would have been in the movie. So I'm trying to think, like, what would a movie shot in 1999, released in 2000, have done with a character like Rebecca? She's the small, meek medic character. Well, she plays a kind of prominent role in the script. They don't want her to be Jill Valentine, so they probably would have tried to make her unique and not boring. They don't want her to just fade into the background because she's such a major character. It's like, maybe they would have made her a little goth. And so in my artwork here, I've kind of designed her to look kind of gothy. I've put in like darker makeup on her, and with her choker, I added an onk to it. It's like, is that corny and cheesy? Yeah, but so were movies then. That was the vibe of that era of movies. They'd make decisions like that. Wesker, I've dressed him in green because now he's a U.S. Army colonel. Um, you know, and also keeping in mind what the characters' designs were at the time as well. Jill, I have her with long hair. 1996, Jill had long hair. I don't know why they would have assumed that she would have had a bob cut in that film at the time. So she has long hair.
What about this Chris kind of get up that he's got going on here? Is that going to be very reminiscent of?
Yes. So and that's another thing with Chris is that I don't have concept art to work off of, but there are things where Romero was specific about stuff. He's specific about Wesker's sunglasses, and he's very specific when they are and are not on. And with Chris, he specifies that Chris is wearing a flak jacket. So Chris gets a flak jacket. He's not Star's our standard Army issue. I assume it's just something he bought at like an Army surplus or something like that. He has it at home. At the moment in the comic, he's shirtless. But at the moment in the comic, he's just wearing like a gray T-shirt and green jeans. But he will get his flak jacket when he stops by his house. So it's like he has this visual callback. I did include in that artwork Claire's necklace from RE2 Remake. I don't think I'm actually going to include that because it's not something that the film would have thought to include at the time.
Oh, what, this here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it felt where I'm like, well, he's Native American, so like feathers, and it's also like, why would they have thought that didn't exist? It wouldn't exist for 20 more years. So it's like, oh well. But yeah, trying to find a balance between keeping the characters recognizable, because it is a comic being done for fans, as well as trying to stay in the spirit of what this movie probably would have been. Costume designers that are adapting characters tend to like doing things where like they're visual callbacks. So like Rebecca's in a white button-down shirt, but she has like a medical bag, and the medical bag has a green strap. And so the green strap is kind of mimicking the buckles that would have been on her vest in the original game. That sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. That's very thorough. I really appreciate it. What about? I know you mentioned earlier. You said there are things that you've had to overcome, because I appreciate just like George A. Romero was adapting Resident Evil for the big screens. You are adapting a script for a comic book. What's some of the things that, I know you've mentioned some of them, but what are other things that you've had to kind of get around due to varying constraints?
Yeah, like I was saying, it's with a movie, you go through all these different drafts, and the actors have their own things, or like you shoot something, it doesn't work, so you shoot another way. Big movies go through all sorts of change. Like Jurassic Park, as written, the script for that film had a completely different ending, and then when they got time to shoot it, they're like, this ending's boring, and they made up a new ending where the Rex came in and saved the day because it was more exciting. So it's like, who knows what kind of weird changes might have been made by the time this thing was actually put on film. So I don't want the comic to feel fanish. I don't want it to be to at any point feel like I think I'm better than Romero, or that the games are better than Romero, that it's like, oh well, he did this and that's dumb, so I'm changing it. That like I said, it's an early draft. There's weird problems with it, along with the change in language. A book to a movie to a comic book, as an example, things have to change. Jurassic Park novel, there's a movie, and there was a comic book adaptation. Comic book adaptation had to change things from the movie script, which had to change things. So like an example is right now on Twitter, the place that the story is at is a scene where Chris and Jill are in bed, and they're basically just talking about their relationship and the way they view each other. And in Romero's script, they talk a lot. It's a very long conversation, and Chris meanders a lot. And it's like, I very easily could just adapt it word for word and everything. but and it is. I mean, it's basically word for word. I changed a couple of them, but mostly it's about editing because as written, this scene probably would have taken 3 pages to draw because there's so much dialogue. And it's like trapping the reader into 3 pages of this conversation is going to be really wearing, whether or not you're reading it week to week as it's published, or if you're reading it all as a block when the comic's finished. I don't want it to drag. And that's something that actors in a film where there's cinematography and music and editing and the actors themselves giving performances and giving input on the characters that might tweak things, or even just Romero going, it's not working, that I want to keep the flow moving nicely, and I want to keep the core of his scenes in his dialogue the same while editing them enough that as a comic it doesn't become a slog.
Yeah.
As well as things like I mentioned before, Chris not being present for the umbrella explanation, but he does have that information later. So it's like
Chris that needs to be fixed.
That needs to be fixed. And that's not a thing of like, oh, I'm smarter than Romero. There's no way Romero wouldn't have caught that in a future draft. I'm sure if we had access to future drafts, that would have been caught and fixed. I don't have access to those, so I just have to figure it out. Thankfully, it's very weird because in his script, Chris is in the scene prior to that and in the scene immediately following it. So it's like, I'll just put him in that scene too. He literally like walks out of the room and then walks back practically. It isn't exactly what happens, but it's basically what happened. So it's a combination of those two things, trying to edit accordingly to the pacing of a comic book, as well as trying to shore up issues that just come from it being a first draft. A good example with editing is he has a line in his script. I actually have it here in my Google Docs. We have 2 sentences. Chick, chick, chick. Jill pushes aside hangers which hold her clothes. She types numbers into a hidden keypad and a secret panel opens, revealing a closet within a closet, packed with combat uniforms and weapons. That's 2 sentences in his script. But for a comic, that becomes an entire page. Yeah, there it is.
You're right, yeah.
And so it's like, that's the sort of thing I have to be aware of is, keep things paced for a comic book while not getting rid of his vision. This is his script, not mine. All I'm doing is adapting and editing it, but I never, ever want it to come off like I'm trying to fix it, quote unquote. I would not be so presumptive to think that I could do better than the man that wrote the original script. I only seek to adapt it for the new medium that it is in.
Well, yes, but how many times have we seen directors, like I remember studying this when I did my bachelor's, how many times we saw directors take a script and then either deliberately interpret it a different way or just interpret it a different way because it was, completely unintentional.
Oh, for sure.
So you do, even though you're working within the constraints of George A. Romero, you are still working with the wider constraint of Resident Evil. So yeah, I mean,
it has to be a balance between Resident Evil, Romero's script, and me, and I have to find the perfect way to balance these 3 ids, as it were, and hopefully I'll pull it off.
From what I've seen, I can safely say that you're definitely on the way to making it happen. How many? Obviously, I'm seeing the script here is about 95 pages, which, if you take a minute in a page, would be about an hour and a half for a movie. Mm-hmm. What are you intending that the page numbers are going to be? If you've got that foresight right now.
I'm assuming between 125 and 150. give or take, just based on uh, things like that 2 sentence paragraph being turned into a whole page, as well as like, there's a lot of things where like an action scene might be like a single sentence where it's like they fight, but it's like I have to come up with something for that, and that, who knows how many pages that could be. It's whatever works best for the flow of the comic. But I'm assuming 125 to 150 ballpark. If I could get it done in less, sure, but I don't want to hard limit myself.
Of course.
Just because I don't have a real deadline, I don't have anybody breathing over my neck, so why not do what I can to make it the best that it can be? If there's anything we've learned from Welcome to Raccoon City, not giving stuff enough time is an
Oh,
issue.
oh,
So yeah, I'm assuming and that, to be fair, an actual comics adaptation at the time probably would have been about 100 pages. Comic books tend to run 25 to 27 pages long. Something like this probably would have been broken into a 4-issue miniseries. I don't know about that with this, but probably 5 issues, keeping in mind that like 25 to 27 page limit of a single issue.
right.
So, give or take, we'll see how it goes.
How is the creative process going though? Because what just remind us which page you're up to. Present
Uh,
day, 19th of Feb.
well, publicly, I am on page 11. If you support me on Patreon, you get pages early, and on Patreon, it's on page 12. Currently, I'm working on page 16. I like to stay ahead when I am able, I should say. But my brain just completely locked up.
Yeah, your creative, like how is
Yeah.
it going? Are you feeling
Um,
like is it actually pretty easy to kind of get it from
yeah.
pen to paper? Or are you like, oh, these next pages are really going to be difficult?
No, not. I'd say for the most part, it's super exciting. You know, I love drawing, so that part comes super easy. It's Yeah, for the most part, it's fun and it's nice just working from a script, and um, it's exciting getting to design things. Like there's a scene that takes place in Jill's bathroom, so it's like I get to design this whole bathroom. Who knows what it would have been in the film, but with this, it's just like, I mean, it can't be too flashy, but I might as well make it look like something and not just like a boring cube. But it's like, Jill picks up a bag. Well, what does the bag look like? Do I just make it like a boring and white, or like do I do what I did, which is I made it an orange bag with blue flowers on it? And overall, every page I'm just super excited to get to, and there's plot points that I'm excited to get to. I can't wait to get to draw the mansion. Um, can't wait to get to draw actual monsters. So far, there's just been the one zombie, which on page 3 I have my shout out to the head turner
Yes,
from RE1,
that
which
was
is
nice.
another thing. It's like his script does specify a zombie turns around and looks at the camera, and I'm like, I am taking that and running with it because I don't know what else he could have possibly meant. Um, so it's like I'm just super excited to get to things. Like I said, his comic is his script is super gory, so I'm looking forward to drawing some gore. And just, yeah, overall, there's been no part of this that has been like, it's all been very fun and exciting to work on.
The Arkley Mansion. Are you going to do it very as part of this Biohazard Declassified exclusive? Are you going to be drawing it very similar to the original mansion, or is there strict notes inside the script about how it looks? And
Um,
I know you've mentioned that it's got some kind of back door that Chris uses to get in. Obviously, that wasn't in
yeah.
the games.
Um, in Romero's script, the mansion is not affiliated with Umbrella. Umbrella just took this existing estate and built a lab underneath of it. Um, and in his script, the only real descriptions of the mansion is just that it's really old and that everything's like covered in dust and there's sheets on like the chandelier and stuff. Um, so like with the exterior, a movie at that time wouldn't have had digital effects like Welcome to Raccoon City did, where all they did was build a door and then they made the mansion digitally around it.
Mm.
Or the main hall, where they built a set of stairs in the floor and then the rest was green screen. With something like this, the mansion probably would have been a real world building. Um, Much like, I can't remember the name of it, but there's this mansion that everything uses. It's been like Wayne Manor, and it's I think it's Bly Manor and stuff. It's in everything, and once you realize it, you can't unsee it. It's in
What? Wait, sorry.
everything.
What's it called?
I don't remember the name of the actual estate, but it's let me see. There it's used in like half of uh the Elizabethan manor of Walleton Hall. It's a big palatial mansion in Europe that's used for everything. It's been Wayne Manor in like 4 different versions of Batman on screen. I'm pretty sure it was Downton Abbey. It was definitely in a bunch of things like Jeeves and Wooster and stuff like
This thing,
that.
Wallerton
Yeah,
Hall.
yeah,
Yes, in Nottinghamshire, actually, in the UK. But and that's what a lot of movies use, is it?
yeah. You see it all the time. I'm not using that. I had the option of going and looking up a real building, but it's like, so what I've opted to do with the exterior is to just try to design something that looks right while also not just being the game. Now, admittedly, in the games, especially the 96 Resident Evil, there's nothing. There's no artwork of what the exterior of that building looks like. There's the brief shot from the opening cutscene that's like, you can barely tell what it is. It's just like a gray building with like a door. And there's a version of it from REDS, but that's from 10 years later and doesn't apply.
Mm.
So I've just designed a building that kind of echoes the design of the one from the games. Like the windows in the front are very reminiscent of the remake version of it. But for the most part, to just feel unique, it has like a tower in the back, and I've kind of put like a little gazebo up front, just to try to make it feel like something rather than just like the mansion as you know it in the games, with like those really specific balconies and stuff like that, because they don't even go on the balconies in the script.
It's got a very like house on. I don't know whether it's just for this promo poster, but it's
Yeah,
got a very like house on haunted hill type vibe to
yeah,
it.
definitely. I want it to feel very austere and haunted looking, to look like the kind of place that kids would probably like tell scary stories and dare each other to go hang out in. I dare you to spend a night in the Arkley mansion. Um, yeah, definitely that sort of thing. It's not going to be quite, on the tippy top of a hill like it is in the artwork. The artwork was designed to just feel like a 90s poster. It's very inspired by like The Mask of Zorro, and The Stand and stuff like that. Those kind of movie posters where it would be the actors' headshots up against like a background of the sky kind of look. Um, but the interior, I'm probably going to take a little bit more inspiration from the games, just because I imagine that would have been a practical set that they would have built. Just because it's so weirdly specific.
I know you had you specifically mentioned that it's going to be sort of dusty, kind of drab. There was was it Vendetta? They had a mansion that was all kind
Yeah,
of dusty.
Vendetta had a mansion that was all, yeah, it was real grody. Yeah, definitely like cobwebs and dust and stuff. Here's an example of a thing that I'm adding
Oh,
for
here
the
you go.
sake of,
Let
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Can I? Is it gonna? Oh, it's probably not gonna let me open. But this is that what
yeah.
you're envisaging?
Very, very much that sort of vibe. Yeah. Um, and it describes the central staircase and stuff like that. Um, and it is described in a script as being like very dark. For whatever reason, his script is set in the middle of the day, which is very weird for Resident Evil to me, because the series is so
Oh, what? So like when they're being attacked by dogs, it's not like the dead of night.
No, it's like 9 a.m.
What?
Yeah,
That's going to be
it's
very interesting to see how you
it's very.
overcome
I'm gonna
that.
make it very foggy.
Yeah.
But like with the mansion interior, a change I'm making is that he doesn't really go into detail about any light sources. So I'm adding a thing where the mansion, even though it's all like old and rotten and dusty, does have these modern card readers that are locking all the doors. So I'm adding in a thing where when they enter the mansion, there's like a modern lighting system in there, and they flip a switch by the door, and it's like, this is weird. This doesn't feel like the sort of thing that would be in here, and they're like weirdly bright. So and that's more just so that we aren't stuck with almost pitch black panels for like 12 pages. Um, but still, dark and haunted and spooky, and they'll have lights and stuff on their guns. So
And then I suppose the lab. Actually, that's the point. 'Cause, you did kind of. I appreciate we were doing a kind of summarized version, but do we
Mhm.
get the guardhouse? Do we get
No, it's
the
mansion then
underground
labs.
mansion? Oh, well, that explains why
Yeah.
you skipped over. So we envisaging the lab to pretty much lean to how it did in the
Um,
original.
yeah, the labs in his script are gargantuan. They like there's like four. They're closer to like the hive. Well, though where the hive was like they explore like 8 rooms total and then leave. This they're like going deeper and deeper and deeper each level, and they find all sorts of there's like computer labs, and there's the fish tank where Neptune is. Um, so I'm going to try to keep it kind of diverse. One of the things, there's the greenhouse area that Plant 42 is in, and in the games, Plant 42 is like an accident.
Yes.
Um, where here, I want the accident to be more that Plant 42 has like grown up and into the mansion in his script. And you don't know what it is at first. There's just like everything's covered in vines, and it's kind of weird and creepy. And like the vines seem to have like a mind of their own. But when they get down into like the heart of the labs, they find a big room that Plant 42 is in. There's no real explanation for it in his script other than it seems like it's a greenhouse. Um, so something I want to do is I want to make it feel almost like a tank showroom. That like Plant 42 is kept in this big, like massive room-sized glass container. Uh, and that like the characters are like they're gonna walk up to the glass and look at it. It's gonna be like a big empty room with like chairs. Like that Umbrella's gonna be like showing this creature off to an audience. Like kind of like Jurassic World 2, where they're showing off the Endoraptor, I think it's called. That's to try to keep a lot of variety. There's also a lot of vent crawling in his script.
Vent? What, like Metal Gear Solid style vent
Yeah,
crawling?
like Metal Gear Solid, Die Hard kind of vent crawling. So I'm probably gonna change some of that to like closer to like the sewer tunnels from like the Anderson movies, just so that there's some variety to it. But yeah, his labs are just it takes up the grand majority of the script, and I just want to kind of keep them varied and each room feeling unique, um, and kind of coded to whatever the room is for. A big thing that I want to keep in mind with this is Romero had this very specific philosophy with zombies. He called them the blue collar monster, and part of that was, and if you watch his films, every zombie in his movies are unique. You'll watch a lot of zombie movies, and it's just like people, like they're in like t-shirts and jackets and whatever, and they just look normal. But in Romero's movies, the zombies are always like hyper specific. Like there's like a Hare Krishna zombie that's like almost like a character in Dawn of the Dead, and there's a clown zombie in Day of the Dead, and there's always you can always tell who they were before they died. That there's this real character to them. Um, and while these are all going to be scientists and stuff like that, I do want that to carry over to the zombies, but also the environment itself. I want every room to feel like it had a specific purpose and a job that was done in this room that is now in a state of disrepair because of it.
Hmm. Yeah, because it's not just going to be like you're walking into a lab Ooh,
Yeah,
spooky lab where spooky things happen. Like
yeah,
there's got to be an element of rationale to it. I get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And just try to keep another like interior design philosophy I love is Jeff Darrow, who readers might or listeners might know as he did all the designs in the Matrix.
Mhm.
He designed all the sets and stuff for the first Matrix film. And I always think about this interview he gave where he had all the chairs designed, and in one of the chairs he had the cup holder broken. All the chairs had cup holders, but one of the chairs the cup holder was smashed. And one of the Wachowskis asked him, "Why is this cup holder smashed?" And he said, "Well, I figure this character, his desk is right here. So when he gets up and out of his chair, he probably swings the chair too hard. And over time, it cracked the cup holder and it broke off." So I'm trying to keep that in mind. There's only so much I can do with a comic, and I don't ever want it to feel stale or boring. I want this to feel like a real lived in place, which is what the games have always felt,
Mm.
especially something like Resident Evil Remake, where it's like every room feels like people lived and worked and died in this room. And I want to carry that over into these environments for the comic as well.
No, yeah, no, I get that. Although, are you going to include more toilets in your mention? Because the drastic lack of toilets is horrifying in
Yeah,
Resident Evil One.
yeah, there very much aren't enough. There's only the one bathroom in his script, and it's Jill's, and she's leaving that far behind.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even use it. She's answering a radio. So,
Is
um,
there is there anything that aside from the general getting around things, is there anything you feel like you want to add to the to this that just wasn't in it before?
the main things I want to kind of keep in mind that Resident Evil is a really big franchise, and that a movie studio probably would have wanted sequels. His script does not have a sequel hook. It literally ends with watching Raccoon City get blown away into nothingness. It doesn't even like Welcome to Raccoon City ends on that like hero shot of all the characters walking from the rubble. This doesn't end with that. It just ends with all the characters looking out the window of the helicopter and then describing the city going boom. Um, uh, Whereas with this, I imagine that the studio would have wanted sequels and would have probably wanted some sort of something. um, so like in Chris's house, I want to add a little picture of him and Claire that maybe he stops at, and he's just like, thank God you're not here or something. Um, and it is absolutely going to be the Claire from his commercial, because it's the Romero version of Claire, technically. He's going to run past the RPD at one point, and it's going to be the RPD from his commercial because, again, it's technically Romero's version of it. Um, we get a really nice exterior shot of it in his commercial.
Pull
Um,
that up again.
it kind of sort of vaguely looks like the game, like enough like it that you're like, aha, it is the RPD, but it's also like not at all. So, although interestingly, it has steps leading up to the door, which is another interesting connection to the remake. Um, but things like that, just real quick little things that are just like, kind of thrown in for keeping in mind that they would have wanted sequels, and uh, that they probably would have wanted to give some sort of little hint. And it is a comic, so it's like I'm the one in charge, so I might as well do something. I don't want it to get too doofy and geeky, but I'll do it. Yeah, here's the exterior shot. Um, there's a real nice look at like what appears to be like a bank or something, a post office that he slapped the RPD logo on. The police force doesn't appear at all in his script. A guy shows up that's called the sheriff, and that's it. Raccoon's a much smaller town in his script than in the games. Um, but things like that, I don't ever want it to be like and no shade on this. It's an awesome comic. Definitely pick it up if you're into the Tim Burton Batman. There's a comic book right now called Batman '89, and the whole idea is it's making the assumption that Batman Forever never happened, and that uh, Resident and that Tim Burton got to make the Batman 3 that he wanted, where it had Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. Super cool idea, kind of similar to what I'm doing. But something that comic does is like every page there's like a Tim Burton reference. Like there's little kids dressed as like Lock, Shock, and Barrel from Nightmare Before Christmas, and there's like a guy dressed as Beetlejuice or something. It's like it kept doing that, and I want to avoid that. That comic's awesome. Definitely go read it if you're into Tim Burton's Batman. I want to avoid that sort of thing though. Like I'll dot in some things, but I don't ever want it to be constant. Like, remember this? You like the games, don't you? Remember? Yeah. Just, I want it to feel like a film would have. And that's
I
not what a
understand.
film would have felt like.
Yeah. No, you're quite right. Is there from that 30-second Romero excerpt that we had there? It just doesn't. It doesn't give enough of what I mean. I don't know why they got Romero to direct that really, because it doesn't really. It doesn't give him enough time to work
like
with anything really.
seconds.
That could have been anyone that directed that. And they make specific reference to it, like directed by George A. Romero. I suppose for the
Yeah, I think it was just for the name. It's like, hey, we're making a zombie game, and the guy that made zombies made a trailer. I think that's all it is.
So just a couple of questions as they're coming off. So Tyler says, "What's your favorite type of Resident Evil zombie?"
I mean, overall, I'd say the zombies in Remake 1. I love how Resident Evil zombies tend to be pretty fresh. Like the ones in RE2 and 3 have only been dead for like a couple of days max, but the ones in RE1 have been dead for months. Like the outbreak happened in May, and we aren't getting there until the end of July. And I just love how they look and how they sound in the remake. They're very dusty and dry, and you don't
imagine the smell.
Oh my god,
into
yeah. It's just especially because it's like the dead of summer, so it'd all be like that dry heat. But like with a lot of like The Walking Dead and stuff, they'll have like older rotting corpses, and they all kind of look like beef jerky. Whereas the remake zombies have this like weird, like paint on a wall cracking kind of look to it, or like their skin is flaking off in chips, and there's something just really unique and creepy and dusty about it, and I love the way they sound too. The zombies in the 96 Resident Evil all sound kind of pathetic. They just sound like people moaning, but the ones in the remake have this really distinct, like you can hear the holes in their lungs. And none of the zombies in none of the other games sound like they do in Remake. I think they're the same sounds in Zero, but Zero and Remake have this really distinct, hollow, ragged sound to the moans that even like Remake 2 and 3 don't have, and that they're kind of screamy. It's the ones in Remake. I love those.
Understood. Did Romero, and this will obviously translate to your comic, did he have great character, like like a monster descriptions? Did he go into great detail? Was it very surface level, so you might just have to borrow from the games?
He does do minor detail. With like with his version of the hunters is kind of weird. They're kind of almost like a combination of hunters and like the eliminators. He describes them as being like hairy. Let me see here. It's right before they run into Ada, I think. He does make an effort to make sure, even though like nobody in this movie says what things are, he does go out of his way to call them out by name in the script. Yeah, here we go. With ferocious eyes that glare from beneath an insect-like carapace, this thing is an amalgam of all the nasty creatures that have pursued us in our nightmares. It is called a hunter. There are 6 of them. As far as we can see, there might be more coming from behind. Their 3-toed feet also have claws that can pierce the ceiling, enabling them to move forward, hand over foot, foot over hand. and he later on describes them as like as having like metal plates in their head. So when they try to shoot them in the face, it's like the bullets just like
Ricochets, yeah.
ricochet. Um, yeah, I seeing Nick, and that's a big thing with me. Nick says, "Imagine Tom Savini doing the makeup and special effects for the Ari movies too." That's definitely one of the things I'm rolling with, is the assumption that Tom Savini would have been the one doing these effects, and I'm going to make my zombies and gore look as Tom Savini like as possible. The dude was extremely creative with his gore and his creature designs, um, and would always find a way to make a gore gag stand out, from the smallest doofiest little thing um like the eyeballs popping out in Friday the 13th 3, to things like the zombie with its jaw ripped off at the opening of Day of the Dead, where his tongue is just like hanging down his chest. Like that sort of thing. I definitely, I love his work, and I definitely want to at least attempt to capture it in the comic.
But this is what I really appreciate, is the level of detail you're going to. You're not just going, oh, I'm an artist and I'm a big Resident Evil fan. I'm just gonna read this script and then put pen to paper. You've actually, obviously, you have a great, you hold Romero himself in quite great esteem, and yeah, you're very well articulated when it comes to um, like, for example, Tom Savini. So you're not just capturing your interpretation, you're also kind of narrowing his kind of vision as well. So you're trying to make it as much as so far as is practicable. You're trying to make it as accurate to George A. Romero as humanly possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of film history and comics history, and I'm drawing this in 2022, but I want it to feel like it came out in 2000, and I want it to feel like it's an actual tie-in to a movie that we didn't get to see. And there's only so much that I can do, but everywhere that I can, I want it to feel like what Romero might have actually done with this. There's only so much I'll be able to do with that, but if I didn't try, then what's the point?
It was actually a great touch as well on your poster that you put January 13th, 2000. I think that's a great touch.
Yeah. I love doing stuff like that. Imagining release dates and stuff like that. I'd love to, like, if I could put together a trailer for this, I think that'd be super fun, but that's far outside the possibility of a comic book.
Well, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Carrier, Sean Carrier, Raccoon City Story. So Sean is, I had Sean on a couple of months ago on the Biohazard Declassified podcast. He's doing effectively what you're doing. Not on George A. Romero's Resident Evil. What he's doing is he's doing a kind of detective drama that's set in 1995 Raccoon City, and he's doing it in the style of, have you played Max Payne?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I don't know too much about it, but I've definitely heard of it.
I'll send you he sent me a few bits over, some trailers and stuff, and he's got the big release of it early next month. We're going to sit down and do a watch party on it. But from what I've seen, obviously he's got his own art style, but he's effectively making a comic book and a series at the same time. It's very, very cool, and very, very, again, just adds to the lore of Resident Evil. But I suppose the easy thing is that, well, I say the easy thing, not to sound disrespectful, but the easy thing is that he can effectively create his own lore, but also add Resident Evil bits. You're trying to piece a puzzle together on somebody else's lore, whilst trying to retain their style, which I think is really impressive, but also very scary because you don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I mean, there are changes that I'm sure people will notice and go like, "You changed that about his script. I've read his script. That's different." I thought this was supposed to be an adaptation. It's like adaptation. I have to do things to make it work, and I have considered maybe as like like a Patreon bonus or something, when it's all said and done, doing like a director's cut where I have a couple of pages added in to just be exactly what he wrote, whether or not it works, just for the sake of it existing. Like if that's what you want, I'll also do that. We'll see. Again, that's probably like a year from now, a year and a half, give or take. But it's definitely something that I'm keeping in mind. Yeah.
So we've spoke about the history of George A. Romero. We spoke, and with particular regard to Resident Evil, we've spoken about your comic book. The next logical thing to discuss, October, is where do we find all of this? Where do we find your progress?
Well, the easiest place is my Twitter, which is at Sissel the Cat. That's SISSLE the Cat, because I forgot how to spell Sissel when I made my account. And every Monday and Thursday, there will be a new page, and it will be the only thing I tweet other than like replies and stuff on Mondays and Thursdays. And if you are interested in the comic or just want to support it, which this I'm working my heart out on it. It is taking a lot of time and it's a lot of work. And if anyone listening or is interested would like to contribute, I have a Patreon set up. It helps me out a ton. Anything from $1 to $5 to $8. It's that those are my 3 tiers. You get early access to pages as well as alternate versions. Like there's a black and white version, a version where I've removed the 90s filter. And as well as I made like cool little packets that allow you to read like kind of my thoughts behind it and look at character designs that I haven't published elsewhere. I do also have adult content on there, so be aware. It's unrelated to the Romero.
You're an artist. It's acceptable.
But yeah, if you're interested in the comic and want to support it, you get a bunch of extra goodies for it on Patreon. I have another packet coming up soon that will be talking about Raccoon City and the mansion and my thoughts going into designing all of those things, as well as some concept art for all of those, as well as some cool sci-fi tech that Wesker has in the script. That's coming up soon. And you also get your name in the credits of each chapter start. I put a little block where I thank everybody. And if you support it, your name will be there too. But yeah, so you get them for free on my Twitter, and you can support it and get early pages on my Patreon. And I said every Monday and Thursday, there's going to be a new page.
No, that's glorious. And did I read as well that you're going to be, as part of, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you get access to the PSDs as well?
You do. Yeah, you get, I include the PSDs, and you can take them apart and look at them. And I've never messed with somebody else's PSD, but I don't know if there's something you might find fun to do with it.
Well, I was just thinking that trailer that you're talking about, we can definitely see what we can put together on that. And once you've kind of getting near the end, or you're there or thereabouts, I think definitely putting up a trailer, just kind of doing it kind of Max Payne style in a way, where you have kind of appears block on block. I think that would be really good.
Yeah, that would actually look really cool. I'm also seeing here, Amber is mentioning my other comic, Chambertine. Yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, I also do another comic called Chambertine. It's just a fanship between Jill Valentine and Rebecca Chambers, hence Chambertine. It's just a cute, fluffy thing of the two of them being super gay and hanging out in pre RE1 Raccoon City. And if you're into cute, fluffy things like that, there's also that. Although it is also a little dramatic and may or may not be leading to a closer adaptation of the games whenever I get to it.
No, that's glorious. That is glorious. Well, October, I really appreciate you jumping on with me today. I've had an absolute blast learning about your project and really reinforming my knowledge of George A. Romero's script. I think you've got obviously a deep appreciation for Romero, and you are probably the best placed person to be to be undertaking this project. And you know, I said it to you. I've said it to you in DMs, and I've, you know, put posts up previously. But any support you need from Biohazard or the wider Resident Evil community, you know, we'll definitely be receptive to giving you a hand and getting this very important project out there.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast. You know, we've talked for years, and I've known about Bio Declassified for years and years. Y'all are a big part of the Resident Evil community, so yeah, it's super exciting.
Indeed, exciting times.
So yeah, definitely thank you for giving me the time to ramble about my little comic.
No, I appreciate it. And of course, definitely jump on over on Twitter at Sissel the Cat, and I'll pin the Patreon in the comments. So if you guys want to check it out and contribute to the project, I would definitely recommend it. Splendid. Right. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Biohazard Declassified podcast. Stay safe wherever you are in the world, and hopefully I'll see all you guys soon.